Welcome to the Informed Simplicity Project, a place for students looking for the informed simplicity on the far side of complexity. This is your host, Jordan Harris. Today I have a dear friend of mine, Jennifer Allen, who has been involved in the therapy world for, well, as long as I've known her. And she's on multiple avenues as an advocate, as a counselor, as a client. And today I'm excited to get her point of view on so many different things. So Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the counseling world?
Sure. I guess I'll start by talking about my time in Africa. I grew up as a missionary kid, and my paradigm was like you graduate from college and you're married and you join a mission team and you go to Africa. So the summer before my senior year, I did a missions internship. My undergraduate degree was in public relations because my mom said getting a degree in missions wasn't profitable and she wanted me to have something that I could make money with. So smart of her. I appreciate that. And so summer before my senior year, I still was pretty determined that that's what I wanted to do. So I did a missions internship in Uganda. And at the end of that, well, throughout that summer, found out about the Lord's Resistance Army and about child soldiers that were being abducted from their homes in the middle of the night and being taken. And came back to the States at the end of that summer, super passionate about that issue. Found out about an organization called Invisible Children that was doing a whole bunch of advocacy work around that issue. Went back to school, broke up with the guy that I thought that I was going to marry, and wasn't a part of a mission team and didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Wasn't super interested in being in public relations. And one of the missionary families from Uganda was back in the States. I think it was November before I graduated in December. And we had a sit down, come to Jesus conversation in the the student center at my university. And they just kind of talked me through some of my options. And they said, well, why don't you pursue a degree in counseling and then go back to Uganda and work with these kids? And that's how it all began.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I had never heard that part of the story before, which
Yeah.
is funny.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It all kind of comes together. It's kind of
Wow.
ridiculous. Yeah.
So then you went into a counseling program, got your
I did. Yeah.
degree in counseling.
I did. Got my MSc, my Master's of Science in Counseling. It's a brand new program. It was very small, but it was super fun. Loved my teachers, loved the program, learned a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And then you didn't go directly into the counseling field though after that.
Let's see, I graduated and then kind of went and lived with my parents for about 6 months. I had been in school for a really long time and didn't know where I wanted to go or what exactly I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to go back to Uganda, but I wanted to have a pretty specific setup and people to work with and all of that. And I just hadn't done that research. I was just getting through school. So lived with my parents for about 6 months. And then they were living in Western Kentucky. And I started looking at jobs in Nashville. And so I found a job working with a huge mental health organization that had their hands in lots of different practices. And my first job was I was contracted through this organization to work in schools. I worked with kids with behavior problems in a pull-out classroom in 3 different middle schools, providing specifically mental health services.
What'd you think?
I had no idea what I was doing. It was every day was crazy. And I loved working with that population. Those kids, I wished that I had the skills. I wished that I knew what to do to help them. And obviously it's a huge, multi-layered and multifaceted thing, but I just I think I constantly felt frustrated and sad that I didn't know what to do to help them.
Yeah.
So I did that for a year. And then because I was working in schools, I had summers off. And I went to DC and was in DC that summer. And then I got a call that my job, it was grant funded, but the grant hadn't been refunded. And so I was loving DC, loving working with a nonprofit that was working with child soldiers. But I didn't want to be another person that left these kids. And so I was determined to go back to Nashville and just continue to work on those skills and learn what I needed to do. But then when I found out that the job wasn't going to be there, I quit and moved to Hawaii for 4 months.
I
But
feel like
yeah,
you're using your vacation like now
maybe.
instead of
Yeah.
when you're 65. 6 months here, for a month there.
Right. Yeah.
Wow,
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
in Hawaii, I lived with my best friend from high school and her like 6-month-old twins while her husband was deployed. So I wasn't just playing, but you know, it was
It's a, I
Hawaii.
mean, I hope you were. It was Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good.
There's no shade, only jealousy. I mean, that's Hawaii. I've
Yeah.
heard it's like 75 every day and no mosquitoes. Like I don't understand.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Um. Wow. Okay. I mean, your story already really strikes me because that's the story of everyone I've talked to who's done this job.
Hmm.
They get out, they feel like they don't know what they're doing, um, and they have some job that is hard. I mean, we really do
Yeah.
give in the field, we give the hardest jobs to the least experienced people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's rough.
yeah,
It's so hard. And
it's
I
a
didn't,
massive design flaw.
right. And I didn't know about boundaries. Like I remembered that like practicum class where somebody who was like brand new graduated came in and said, I give myself like 3 stoplights and then I tell myself I have to stop thinking about it after I leave the office. Or like when I find myself thinking about it, I turn on this song so that it's like a signal that my brain has to shift. And I heard her say those things and I remembered those things, but like I carried those kids. And that summer in Hawaii, when I found out I wasn't going back, I remember like journaling, writing down all of their names and like crying and praying over those kids and just being like, and it was a release. It was good. But it like, I knew their names, I knew their family situations, I knew their not IPAs, IEPs, like all of that stuff. I was so invested, which is good, right? But not to that extent. So, yeah.
So after so you started working in DC and
Mhm.
you're working with child soldiers.
So I volunteered for that summer it was a organization that was working on policy. And so I was knocking on senators' doors and delivering thank you letters after a big event that had happened. But when I moved to DC after that summer or after Hawaii, and I was working at an adoption agency. So I worked with families adopting from Ethiopia.
hmm. Was that more like case management? Was that more like
Yeah, it was more
giving
like
them,
case
yeah.
management. Yeah, it was. I became an expert on the paperwork process, and so I wasn't even their like case manager on the ground. I just knew what pages and like what documents they had to get from which government agencies and what order they needed to be in, and like the details of making sure like the notary's stamp wasn't expired, that kind of thing. But I got the job because of my degree in counseling, which is fine. But I did. These families are spread out across the United States. I met one of the families the whole time, like face to face. But they were traveling. They were visiting from Greece, and they were waiting for a very specific adoption, like a sibling group of a specific age. And when I started, the adoptions from Ethiopia had just hit the beginning of their slowdown. Um, And so I did use skills that I'd learned in helping these families. But this family in particular, like, who I surely by now they've gotten this referral. It's been 7 years, but it had been a long time. And I remember like sitting down with them and chatting, and it's just supposed to be an informal visit, but you can see the like fear and the worry, and being able to use like some of those skills. And also like our shared faith. It was a Christian organization. So I was able to say, I really believe if you feel like this is something God has placed on your heart, then this will come through, this will happen. And I remember like watching them relax and just their whole body, like, okay, yeah, that's where we need to turn to. That's where we needed to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this undercurrent in your story, at least in this part of that wasn't my therapy skills. And the other side of that is that's super, super common. Like that's not uncommon
Mhm.
at all. I
Yeah,
worked at a psych ward where half my job was doing paperwork and placement,
yeah,
and the other
yeah,
half was doing groups. And I love the people that I worked with. I worked with some great people. Um, but that was the reality of the job market, and I think we don't always do a good job of telling students that and then preparing them for that.
yeah, yeah.
As much as we go into the field to sit with people, the actual job market is very, it can be equal parts social work and equal parts face-to-face counseling.
Right,
And I think
for
you should be,
sure,
be prepared for that. Like that is a part of
for
your
sure.
quote unquote skill set. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I think something else I wasn't prepared for, I wasn't aware, just speaking on that, you reminded me when I was applying for jobs right out of school, um, I was on the website for this mental health organization, and I applied for one position, and I was asking my mom, like, because it asked what your expected salary was, and I had no clue. And so I was talking to my mom, who's a teacher and been a teacher for years and years and years. And she figured it was probably one of the higher ranges because it asked what your expected salary was, and then it gave like intervals, like specific numbers, and you could choose one of four or five. And so I chose like one of the top two. And I didn't get a call back. And then when I applied for the second one, I don't remember if I put a different number. I don't remember how that went. But in the interview, they asked me, "Oh, didn't you apply for this other position?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Yeah, you had requested too much. Like, there was no way we could accommodate that. So we didn't even call you back." So something else to be prepared for. Just reality check.
yeah, put some actual numbers to that so
Right.
students know. Like,
Yeah.
what would you, what,
I mean, it's been 10 years. I honestly don't remember what the
yeah.
numbers were, but it was the lowest one. I started at the lowest one.
Well, can you give like a broad range then?
I'm really like I'm struggling. My guess is it was somewhere between like 20,000 and 50, or yeah, 50,000.
That was what you
I
requested, or that's what you got?
No, I think I started closer to 20,
Yeah,
and I think like the highest was 50. So it was like 20, 30, 40, 50 or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's also super true. I had two job offers when I was living in Louisiana, and both I turned down because they were just very low. My first one was 35. This is after my doctorate. I
Wow.
got out
Yeah.
and I was over
Yeah.
and I was like, this can't be a real offer. Like
Right.
what the heck?
Right.
And then the next one was a great job and they offered like 40, 42 or something like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And
Right.
naively, I turned that one down and then couldn't find a job. So I couldn't find a job for the next year and a half and started doing three different
Yeah.
part-time jobs. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I mean, I just finished with a master's degree. Surely my entry level is more than 20,000, but yeah.
Um, so you're working for the adoption agency, and then what happened?
Hmm. So I worked there for 2 years. My, I Yeah, I'll just get real personal and we'll see what happens. I grew up uh, in a very Christian home, like very loving, very like, I mean, as healthy as anybody's gonna be, right? Missionary kid. Um, and my experience in DC was the first time I'd been outside of that Christian sphere. Everywhere else, the school I went to was same denomination of church that I'd grown up in, and the my friends in Nashville for that year were friends that I'd gone to middle school like Bible camp with. So I just had been in this same space forever and ever and ever, and even in Uganda, like same missionary, same church denomination. So when I moved to DC, well, that summer, I got to know the folks at that nonprofit that were doing the child soldier work, and one of them like grew up. Two of them grew up Catholic. One of them was a staunch atheist. One of them was like existential crisis every day, but a lovely human. And the other one was kind of in a similar experience, like life space as me. Had grown up Christian and was kind of doing some exploring, but I had never spent time with people who were doing work around um, like issues in Africa who weren't coming at it from a Christian perspective. And I didn't know what to do with that. Like that kind of blew my mind. And then I just kept having experiences like that. I met gay people who were Christians, and I had grown up never doubting that Jesus loved gay people, but I didn't know that gay people loved Jesus. And so my experience in DC was like revelation after revelation and paradigm shift and paradigm tearing down. And I just kept, I got to a point where it's just like, I don't know how much more I can learn, but I just kept realizing God is so much bigger than I ever gave him credit for. So that was the beginning of my DC experience. So I worked at this Christian adoption agency for a couple of years until it got to the point where it's like, I appreciate the work that they're doing, but so many of the families I worked with, like, bless their hearts, it just felt like this like white savior complex, or this, it just felt I didn't, i'm sh- I'm sure they all have their best intentions, but I was learning things and experiencing things, and I was in a place where it just wasn't a good fit anymore. So I also wanted to get back to working with kids. That was about, I think I named that before I named the other stuff. So I became a nanny, and I was a nanny for almost 2 years with a family that I'm still really close to. I vacationed with them during the summer. They helped send me to Paris for a week to spend time with a friend who was dying of cancer, and just super, super wonderful, close friends.
Wow. And then,
And then, so I did that for 2 years, and then they're better friends than it was a working situation. So I'm glad we're still friends, but it was time for me to find something else. And I was, again, like looking at how do I get into like working with kids in a bigger way or in a different way. And so I thought that I was going to work in schools. And I applied for a couple of different jobs, even had a phone interview in my car like one day. Just wasn't quite prepared for that one. But just wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and so wasn't ready to walk into any interview with conviction or what's the word I'm looking, like assertiveness, I guess. And so I ended up starting my own business. It was a home organizing business. No business experience, no entrepreneurial experience whatsoever. But I was really good at organizing. And I'd gotten that feedback from my roommates. And they said, yeah, I think you'd be great at this. So I did a whole bunch of research about what does it look like to monetize that, or what does it look like to be a good home organizer? Still not really doing the business side of it, research. And so thought I had a couple of good networks, like between my church and a couple of other churches, just their online like marketplace. I thought that I was going to be able to advertise and that I would get just buku people. Yeah, that sounds great. Let me hire you. I think I had 5 clients over 6 months, which was humbling, but also I didn't know what I was learning. I just didn't know anything about marketing. Um, so then I started working with somebody from church, again, a good connection, who was starting a co-working space. And he and his business partner, their model was that they would work in existing coffee shops that didn't have a whole lot going on during the day. Coffee shops or diners or cafes that were kind of slower during the day and had more business at night. So it would make use of their space during the day, and they did all the advertising, and so they had like a pilot location that they were testing out and trying to learn. They were doing all the marketing things I didn't know anything about. So I was learning a lot with them and did that for about a year and a half. And that was really, really good learning. Lots of challenges, like personality wise, with some of the folks involved um, in the project, but um, just learned so much about business and marketing, and keep saying marketing, but it's more about like testing this theory and what does it look like to have this idea and put it out there and then improve it as you're going and see how that builds. And they one of the guys worked from home, and so he felt like he had it like super figured out, like these are the key things we need to advertise. And I think he was right. I think it was really good. And we grew it over that year and a half, and it was really fun. But one of the things that I learned um, was about digital nomads. I learned all about who is working in co-working spaces and did a whole bunch of that research. And so then found out that there's a whole like community of digital nomads that live all over Southeast Asia. And there's like it's not a trail, but kind of just several hot spots, places that people visit, or places that people work for a certain amount of time, just based on the visa situation and all of that. But they're working for a company in the West, and they're getting a salary at that level, and they're living in Thailand, where cost of living is a fraction of what it is in the West. And so they're living in villas and eating coconuts and mangoes every day, and it's amazing. So I wanted that.
It's all the Hawaii perks without the Hawaiian money.
Right, exactly. So I did manage the co-working space and practice some of my PR/marketing skills, and then one of the founders and his wife and 3 kids went and did a trip in Southeast Asia, and they were gone 2 or 3 months. I think they had set a budget, and they said they would come home after that. And so I followed after they came back. I went and did that, and I set myself a budget, and then I did. I traveled all over, from Japan all the way down to New Zealand, and hit lots of spots in between. And yeah, it was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, at what point did you become a client of therapy?
Oh, let's see. So my senior year of college, well, probably my first year of grad school, I finished in December. Jordan came to my graduation, like showed up and watched me walk across the stage and left again. And then, um, right?
I like
Isn't
how
that
that's like
right?
the one thing that you remember. Oh my gosh.
It's not the one thing, but I'm talking about graduation. I just thought I'd throw that in there. You
Oh,
were there.
yeah.
But I finished in December, and I started grad school the next semester, and I had a pretty big meltdown that next semester. I just dealing with all the grief. Like I'd said before, I thought that I was going to graduate and I was going to be married and I was going to go to Africa, and I graduated, but I was not married and I was not going to Africa. And that I just didn't know what to do with that. My whole world was upended. And so drove home a couple of different weekends to my family's house in Kentucky. And one weekend I got there and I went, I don't know if it was spring, it was a long weekend. I was gonna go get allergy shots and I was gonna go get allergy testing for food allergy. And it was spring, and so there was a lot of pollen in the air. So I took an Allegra because I didn't. And when I got there, they started doing the testing, and they're like, "You're not reacting to anything." I was like, "Oh, I took an Allegra this morning," and they laughed, and they're like, well, "Why did you do that? None of this is going to work." And I thought I was just like, "Well, pollen allergies are different than food allergies. I thought it would be different." But I got in the car and I cried all the way home because I just felt so ashamed that I wouldn't have known. And I was supposed to like leave from that appointment and go back to school. And I don't remember if I called my mom or if I just waited till she got home from work. But I was just like, this is bad. This is really, really bad. Like very clearly it wasn't clear at that point. Looking back, very clearly that's not like an a normal response. But I was struggling. I was really struggling, really depressed, and really. So my mom's sister lives outside of Nashville, and she recommended a therapist. So I went for the first time. She was wonderful. We had a like I don't know if it was an extended session. It may have been like a 2-hour session, but just talked a lot. And she really wanted me to go to a self-esteem boot camp or an assertiveness boot camp. And I had to go back to school, so I wasn't able to do that. But I started, I almost said Lexapro. I started an antidepressant right after that. I don't remember. I think it was Lexapro. Um, and was on that for a couple of years.
So how many counselors have you had?
um, I think just 3.
3.
So that first one, and then in DC, I saw a woman for a little while. And then now here in Nashville, I've worked with a therapist for over a year.
So would you say that you've kind of really only had 2? Because that first one you saw just for that one session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like she's been like a mental health, like a resource. Like she feels like a lifeline, like I could call still anytime. She still like sees my aunt. She showed up at my uncle's funeral. So like she's a part of our family. So I feel like she's still part of my life. But yeah, I've only really worked with 2. Yeah.
No. And your one in DC, how long did you see them?
I think I only saw her for a couple of sessions. Um,
A couple as in,
Maybe 3 or 4. Um, I think I think my jobs changed and I didn't have the money to keep going back. Um, I'm trying to think what the timing was on that. I feel like it was towards the end of my time working at the adoption agency.
okay. And was that a man? Was that a woman? Was that?
It was a woman. Yeah. She was recommended to me by someone at just one of my friends through the nonprofit. Um,
And was she helpful? Was she unhelpful? Was she
she was
moderately
helpful. I'm
helpful?
trying to think. I think I'm moderately helpful is appropriate. I feel like my issues were time of life, and I feel like I'm always going to struggle with depression. I was on antidepressants for a couple of years, and then kind of weaned myself off towards the end of my grad school time, um, and haven't been back on. But there are definitely times when I can look back and be like, "Oh, I was real depressed," and I definitely get seasonal depression. And so that, like, I went back to Southeast Asia last year, and was planning to go for 3 months just to avoid winter because financially I could and situationally I could. Ended up staying 6 months, but um, sunshine and coconuts, how can you go wrong? Um, but yeah, she was moderately helpful.
What
I
was the?
remember specifically like working through feelings about a guy and that it wasn't going to happen. Um, I think there was more going on, but those are the conversations I remember.
Yeah. What could she have done to be more helpful? This is the question I
Mm.
think therapists don't often get
I
feedback on.
It's a good question. I think so much of it is personality. And it's a good question. I think I felt like she was my mom, like giving me advice more than she was, because she kept pushing me, like asking me, like, would I regret it if I didn't do this? Or what would it look like if I didn't do this? And like, that's good. That's helpful from a therapist. I think I probably need that, seeing as my first therapist wanted me to go to an assertiveness boot camp. Um, but I think what I have struggled with a lot is feeling like hmm, is that I don't know the answers, or I don't know how to make a next decision, or I don't know how to weigh like consequences of choices, and I just get paralyzed by the fear of the indecision. Um so probably she was doing something that was helpful, and like what would it look like if, and helping me work through some of that. But I think in that situation, um, that specific situation, it was layered enough that I felt like I already knew what the answer was. And so I was struggling with probably just the grieving again, honestly. So maybe if she'd given me those words, that would have been helpful.
Yeah, she's been able to just reflect back, hey, you're just grieving,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe normalize it some more, or
yeah. I think that's something I've struggled with for sure, is feeling big feelings and not uh, and feeling out of place because of it, or feeling like crazy because of it. And if more people had said, no, it's okay, like just feel your feelings, it's fine, I think, yeah, my life would look different. But I'm right there. I'm there now.
yeah,
I'm learning how to feel my feelings, and it's
yeah.
got really powerful.
It sounds like she was trying to help you think through your options, and you kind of knew what your options were.
Hmm.
You needed to have your emotions sort of normalized.
Yeah, I think so. That makes a
Hmm.
lot of sense.
It's so hard for therapists. Were you able to tell her that?
No, I don't like, I think this is the first time I've verbalized that. So yeah. I could go back and see if I can find her contact information.
You tell
I
her.
think,
Remember me from 5 years ago? Well,
right. Yeah. This is what I needed from you. Um, I forgot what I was gonna say.
I mean, so I'll fill it in.
Yeah.
Um, Something I've thought a lot about is the process of therapy, right?
Yeah.
Most people focus on their model,
Yeah.
or they focus on their own, as one therapist calls it, psychotheology, their
Mm,
philosophy. And something that I focus more on is the process, right? And
yeah.
so things like, what's the average number of sessions people come?
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the factors across the board, regardless of model or orientation, that keep people in therapy or push people out of therapy? And
Yeah.
it sounds like, and these are all important because I think that these sort of almost like basic factors contribute a lot more to the process than we
Mm,
think.
yeah. That makes
Um,
sense.
from a basic standpoint, like I work in an area where we do a lot of emotionally focused therapy, which you've been exposed to a little
Hmm.
bit. And a lot of the emphasis is on, you know, um, I don't know, corrective emotional experiences, right? If you can have
Hmm.
someone who can share what's going on for them and then receive comfort in hard places, that people change.
Yeah.
But if that's not what the client is expecting out of the therapy, then it's going to fail. I mean, I
Mm,
can't tell you how many clients I've had who've said, okay,
yeah.
we do this, but what do we do?
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
don't, what I'm offering you doesn't connect with your theory of change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's such a hard thing
Mm.
as a therapist, especially because you don't really have that many chances to like fail,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
miss it twice, maybe three times. Clients aren't going to
Yeah.
come back, and they're not going to be able,
Yeah.
and they won't tell you, oh, this is where you missed me. And so
Right.
this therapist, and I have no idea her from
Right.
Adam or Eve, right? Um, but she could have been the most curious, empathic, warm person, but just missed it with you, right? Like
Right.
one of the best therapists on the planet has a 7% rate of people getting worse or no change. So she could have
Huh.
been this lady's counterpart, right?
Right.
Um, but for whatever reason, you're in her 7% and she missed it, and she never got any feedback on why she missed it.
Right.
And so it's just so
Interesting.
interesting to hear your side of things and
Yeah.
say, okay, yeah, I just needed to have that normalized instead of thinking through possibilities or strategies or whatever,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Um, and how, yeah. What is the role of a therapist to educate people on what they're capable of? Or to educate yeah, because people come when they're hurting, right? When there's something wrong. And I we probably expect changes like pretty quickly. We're hurting and we would like something different. And there's nothing that's going to be magic like that. Maybe drugs help, but like there's no like fixing. And I think my one of my biggest issues as a client has always been um I know a lot. I'm smart, I'm articulate, like and I'm super introspective. And so I've already done a whole lot of work before I show up at a therapy session. And some of that's spiraling and some of that's unhealthy, but I'm pretty I'm pretty good at showing up in therapy and knowing what how to talk about what's going on. And so I think what you're saying about normalizing emotions is what I can't find in myself because I'm spinning on what I've got. Sorry. So having somebody just say, "Hey, like this is a normal time of life stuff," or "No, that's significant. Like that's statistically significant or clinically significant, and these are the things we can do about it." Just for some more disclosure, well, I don't know if I'm ready to talk about
Don't.
that.
Not at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. I've started working with a group that has shared, like, that has opened my eyes to just dysfunction in family systems, like generations back, that has changed things more than anything else has. And I feel like it's what I've been looking for this whole time is somebody saying what's going on in your head is normal, is to be expected, is understandable because of all these other things. And here are the steps forward. Um, so that's been revolutionary.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that because I know that you've done some like trauma work as well. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to ask about the trauma or whatever you worked through,
Yeah.
but um, one of the things you said was after you'd done your trauma work, then you got involved in a few different groups or whatever, and you feel like you finally had like action steps.
Yeah.
Can you,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Go ahead and ask your question so I
Well,
can answer it clearly.
I think that's at least for me, as I heard that, I had this thought of you're saying that your trauma work was really, really helpful,
hmm
but then you're also saying that something wasn't quite hitting, that there was something that was still kind of missing.
Right.
Um,
So I think there's um, so much of the work. I'm going to refer to trauma work as the work that I did with a group in DC, just like an informal group of people that got together once a week and talked about like what we'd been through and what does it look like to heal. And it wasn't led by a like licensed practitioner. It was just like a church group. Um, and it was so, I think that was healing because it was normalizing in a way. Like we all talked about these like difficult experiences and we were able to sit together and talk through all of these things. And that was really, really good. I formed just really close friendships through that. Um, but that those patterns of thoughts and behavior are still there. Like that work normalized it in that it provided a space for healing and it provided a space for sharing and for actually like talking about what was going on or what had happened. But it didn't it didn't interrupt those. It didn't change anything. And so being able to do this work with this group that I'm in now, um, it just again like just points to it's not just me. Like it's not my fault. It's not that I'm broken, and it just reinforces that there is a way to change things. That
So,
there are steps for that.
um, and you're also talking to a therapist now. You have your own therapist now.
Yeah.
Um, and what's that like for you, right? And in the terms of you have that, but then you also have this group that you're a part of, and
Right.
I'm assuming you're getting different things from these groups.
I am for sure. My therapist was the one that recommended this group to me. She's actually been through it herself. And so that I was super grateful for that. She there are times when I feel like she's more of a friend than a therapist. And there for a while, like I moved to Nashville 3 years ago and I haven't made many friends. So there's a part of me that feels like I'm just paying for her to be my friend. But she is super knowledgeable and skilled, so it's not just a friend. But um she for a long time I've said it almost like she feels like my cheerleader. And that again isn't what I've expected from therapy, but it's what I've needed. I think I don't realize how negative my internal monologue is. And so when she stops me and is just like, yeah, but you've been working really hard. It's like, oh, you're right. I have been working really hard. No wonder I'm tired. No wonder I'm stressed. No wonder everything is hard. Like, I have been doing a whole lot of emotional work and emotional growth. And it's good to have her just reflect that back and just say, no, you're doing a lot.
Hmm.
Where you were a year ago, year and a half ago, completely different human. So,
And how often do you see her?
usually every couple of weeks, we took a break. She had a baby, and so I think she took 2 months, and then I traveled for a year. So I've been seeing her on and off for about 3 years, but
Okay.
we've had some interruptions.
Yeah. So it sounds like with her, a lot of support, a lot of cheerleading, a lot of encouragement, and then for your group, they're more digging into you and your family and why you did what you did, and
Yeah,
um, also normalizing. Of course, you did this because look at where you came from.
right. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
do you wish your therapist would dig in more? I mean,
There have
obviously, you're
been
getting what you needed from her, right? But
Right. Yeah. There have been times when I think I talked to you about, I wish she would give me some homework assignments. I wish she would give me, and I think that was me like just searching for, like, where is this coming from? Why do I still feel like this 3 years later? Yes, I have grown. Yes, I have learned new skills. Yes, I have done these new things, like new acceptances about myself and all this stuff. But like, it's still there's still something missing. There's still this feeling that I'm missing something to put these pieces together. And I think I'm getting that from the group. So yeah, I wish there had been more of that from her. And I don't know, I did an EMDR session with her, and I don't know if we had continued that, if I would have felt like I was getting, this isn't how I really feel, but getting my money's worth. It's just like I go and I talk and talk and talk, and then I leave. And sometimes I feel like I've had a little bit of breakthrough, sometimes I don't. I think I remember sitting in that very first therapy session and walking away just feeling like so enlightened or so much better. And that was like I was at bottom's bottom. So it wasn't going to take much to like give me hope or give me a little bit more information. And I think it's not realistic to expect that kind of like aha moment in every single session, because it is like it's a journey, it's a process. There's you have to learn these new skills and you have to practice these new things. She does give me like reading assignments every so often, and she'll print it off and hand it to me, and I've never read them, so that's on me. That's just being real.
Oh my
There's like
God. Oh my God.
pages from workbooks.
Oh, see,
And
this is
she
the thing
knows.
that
Like
confuses us
I,
therapists.
I
Because you
know.
say things like you want homework, but then when I gave you something, you didn't do it.
I
So
want
I don't
like
give you
an
homework.
action. I want an act. I want to like. I want to have to go show up somewhere and act as if, or I want to like, yeah. But yeah, you're right. You're right.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just saying this is
it's
the
true.
part where, as someone who's deeply invested, I'm like, I had a
I
client.
literally gave you homework.
I don't know. Oh, you want me to give you the homework that you want, but I don't think that that's what you need. So I'm not gonna give you what you already want. And if you could do what you wanted to do, you would just do it anyway, right? So, oh man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah,
So, 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 what's the
busted.
difference between the homework that you're doing and the homework that you weren't doing?
Oh, good question. Also, just so you know, there was a lag in the audio right then. I don't
Yeah,
know if that'll happen on your side, but for me,
we'll see.
um, the difference between the homework that I am willing to do. Well, I'm not. I haven't been diligent about doing this other homework either. Um, I think this other homework, I feel more. I'm just not good at doing it. Um, I think I get nervous about the amount of emotional investment it'll take, and the amount of emotional energy it'll take. And so I just don't do it because I'm already feeling a lot of things. I just had a tornado tear through my neighborhood, and now with the coronavirus, I lost all my jobs. So just I mean that's just in the last 2 weeks, but um,
But the one with the group you are doing, and you apparently enjoy it, and it's really helpful.
yeah. Um, for the most part, I'm doing it. um Yeah, I think what I'm feeling in myself is that I just get nervous about the amount of emotional energy it will take. But I keep showing up because I know it's important, because I know that it's good. My plan is to go back through and work through some of the assignments that I've missed, like in
It
the next
almost
couple of days.
it almost sounds like the fact that they're giving you homework, even if you're not doing it, something about that is encouraging to you. Like you feel like there's
Yeah,
there's a plan.
yes, for sure, absolutely, yes. There is a way forward, a way out of this.
Whereas with your therapist, it wasn't often enough to feel like it was consistent or was part of a larger, or it was, or as though it wasn't ugh, you didn't have the sense that it was a part of a larger sort of plan.
Yeah. And I think that's very true. I work best when I know what the plan is or what the goal is. Because man, Can you be my therapist? Um,
Yes, I
I
can. $180
it's
an hour. Cash under the table.
cash under the table. Venmo. Um,
Bitcoin.
I Yeah, if I have a really clear goal, I'll do the homework. I'll do the things from here to there. And I'm really happy doing research online and reading articles and finding out what other people are doing. Like building a business. I'm learning those skills and I love it. I love doing that research and this is my goal and this is my niche and these are this is how to market to those people. I love learning those things. So I think if I could apply that to therapy and my work with my current therapist, it's I just show up and talk and then I leave. Um, and I think we do that because it's been infrequent enough and because I've led that way. But if I showed up and said, "Hey, if we could like come up with a like 5-step plan and this is our goal," like she would totally be on board with that.
Yeah.
Because the homework that she gives me, it's yeah, she prints it off in class in session because it's something that we've talked
Freudian
about.
slip.
Right. Right.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
because it's something we've talked about like in the middle of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So,
Um, early
so it
on,
doesn't feel like it's building. Yeah.
right, right.
Early on. Yeah.
Early on, did you go every week?
Um, I think I did. Mostly it's financial. Like she doesn't participate in any insurance, so it's just what I can afford. But yeah, I think the first month or so I probably went every week, month or two.
A month or two. So 4 to 8 sessions you went every week, and then you started spacing it out.
Yeah.
Therapy, man, is such a weird job. It's such a weird job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I say that because, in my grad program, and this is still baked into me, even though I know something different, this is still baked into me.
Mm,
In my grad program, I got the assumption that people would come every week for like 2 years and work through their stuff. That never happens.
yeah.
That never happens.
Yeah.
I tell my clients, people do one of three things. They come, um, and usually they see some sort of change within 5 to 6 sessions. And at that point, they either drop out, they say, let's keep going every week, which is a minority of people,
Mm,
or, and the majority of people, they say, this is great, let's continue this every other week.
mm-hmm. Interesting.
And that tends to be what happens until later on they drop out, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just
Hmm.
fascinating.
Yeah. I'm recognizing what's coming up for me as I'm just realizing I feel weird that I'm still going. Um, I'm grateful that she's a resource and like it's good, it's what I need. But there's a part of me that's like, oh my gosh, I've been in therapy for 3 years. What's happening? Like, why, or even why is it taking us 3 years to get to this point where I found this group? And I'm like, but also like, I came to her a broken shell of a human. Like, I had buried a best friend. I had left my life in Nashville, in DC. I had traveled for 4 months in Southeast Asia. I had no friends. I came to her just like, blah. And so, yeah, we've done a lot of work together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is awesome. That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, is there any advice? Like if you had to
Mm.
give us,
Be more like Jordan.
don't be like me. Do not be like me. If you had to give us some advice, something else as a client that, most therapists don't hear.
Yeah. Um, I what I'm the first thing that comes to mind is there was a session where my therapist said something and I got really defensive and I felt comfortable saying I like just voicing that and saying I feel really defensive about what you just said. Um, and she was grateful. She was just like, thank you so much for saying that. So whether I don't know how a therapist can say to their client, push back anytime you need to, like but somehow making it a comfortable space for people to be able to say, even in session, whoa, like what you're saying right now doesn't sit or doesn't fly, or I'm not like, I can't hear that right now. That was really helpful, I think, for both of us in that session, for me to be able to say, I like that doesn't sit well.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. There's a lot of research, and I think it transfers over that says people have to feel safe saying no. And the more people are safe saying no, the more they say yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they don't feel safe saying no, eventually they exit the relationship.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important. And yeah, it's so important. So as I've thought through the process and read some of the research, and I try to follow up with my clients and review my past sessions and try to figure out, okay, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
I feel like there are 3 types of clients.
Okay.
Early on. You have some people who just aren't invested in the process. I've had this. I've heard this, but I hadn't really seen it. I'm sure I just missed it up until about a month ago, when I had 2 sessions that I thought went really, really well. And it was early on. We were session 1 or session 2, and then the next week I got calls from both of these clients, and they said that they weren't going to come back. And I was like, but the sessions went really, really well. Like they were both couple sessions, and you're saying you've said things to each other you've never said before. You're hugging each other and crying throughout the session. You know what I mean? Like this is a great session.
Yeah. Yeah.
And both of them said, we decided to go see our pastor because our pastor couldn't see us before, but now they're going to go see us.
Oh, wow.
And at first I was like, what did I do wrong? Oh my gosh, I'm a horrible therapist. And then I was like, no, they actually just weren't invested in the process.
Yeah.
They were on the fence.
Yeah.
But you have those clients. And
And
then
yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm trying to get your feedback here, so you go.
Yeah. I feel like I'm curious to hear about the other 2 kinds of clients, but I feel like that's been me at different points. So like I've been probably all 3 clients at different points, but go ahead.
And then you have the people who they appear to be all in, and they come for 5 or 6 sessions, and then I don't hear from them anymore. And I think I must have missed something with them. And I can't, for the life of me, tell what it is. I have a client now who, well, I don't have her anymore. She came in and she said that she was just going through lots of stuff and there was no one to really support her. And I just normalized and validated and normalized and validated. She had this weird look on her face, like, what are you doing? She's like, this is just really weird for me. I don't know. And we kept going, and I just kept doing that because the things that she was talking about were sort of like normal, everyday life hardness.
Yeah.
And then she dropped out about a month ago, and I haven't seen her. And I'm like, I don't know what you wanted out of therapy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew what you wanted. Maybe you did, and you just didn't have the strength to tell me. Not strength, but I think it does take a strength to say to the person who's a therapist, like, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like that word, but it's the best word I can think of. And so I think I have some of those who, it's like we start off well, and then we get 5 or 6 sessions in, and I at least feel like I'm not giving them what they want. And it leaves me with a sense of maybe I'm like letting them down.
Yeah.
Like they came in with hope, and then they left
And I
with
think
being let down.
being let down. Yeah. I want to fix your problem. I want to tell you
Tell
it's
me.
fine. But
I want to know.
no, I just want to make you feel better. Like, that's my go-to. Like, oh,
Yeah,
but you're fine.
but you're fine.
It's not about you, it's about them. Um, I think it's really hard. I think we don't know what we want, and we don't know how to say, no, this is what I want. But that's why we came to therapy, because we need somebody to tell us what we need. Um, and it's hard to sift through like what I'm experiencing. And I think we give a lot of weight to what a therapist is saying, um, because sorry, I got distracted by my phone. I think we give a lot of credence and weight to what a therapist is saying. And if it's not working, then it probably feels more like a personal failure. Feels like I'm not showing up in the way I need to, or I'm not communicating clearly. Um, so I think your client's probably walking away feeling the same way that you are, but not about you. Just feeling like, I don't know what something's missing, but I don't know how to say what I need. Um, so I don't, maybe like session 5, make it hey, a check-in session. Make it what's working for you, what's not working for you, what questions do you have for me, what do you wish you could say to me? I don't know.
Yeah,
Session 4 or session 5.
yeah. I tell most of my clients, I have a checklist of things in the first session, and I tell them, um, I want to win, and I'll
Mm,
win when you get the help that you need. And so if something doesn't fit for you, if you need a different therapist, I will help you find someone else.
mm.
Um,
So you wouldn't mind if they left like with a referral from you, but it's frustrating that they leave with no word.
right.
You're getting ghosted.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I get ghosted a lot, and I think
Yeah.
some of that is, like anyone,
Yeah.
if you're feeling better,
Yeah.
you don't even think about. Like I have two clients that were instructive to me in this,
Mm,
because we both had sessions where they left feeling fundamentally different,
mm,
and they didn't come back. And
mm,
one, I'd call and check in, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I don't have my schedule yet." And she'd set an appointment. She'd come, and then I didn't hear from her for like a month, and I'd call. "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." Like she's feeling better,
yeah.
so she's
Yeah.
not even thinking about coming in anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a guy that also happened with, so I know that that also happens.
Yeah.
And that probably happens more than I think it does. But as the therapist, you just don't know. Like
Yeah.
this person is just gone. You're like, I don't know what
Yeah.
happened. There is no
Yeah.
closure, as a friend of mine says. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm that person.
you're
I
that
did that with my
person.
DC. I did that with my DC therapist for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that is interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
in some ways, your DC therapist and your therapist now seem like they were both helpful.
Hmm.
Um, but with your DC therapist, you didn't say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm gone. I'm."
Yeah. I think with her, we wouldn't even, with my current therapist, we always set the next appointment in the session. So that's one tactic.
Yeah.
Um, and then the one in DC, I don't think we did that. There was no follow up because it wasn't like there was a front office at the desk or anything.
Mm,
We would, I would meet her, and then we would get done, and she would say something like, reach out when you want to set up a new appointment or something
mm,
like that. So she was also not much older, but she was older than any of the other therapists I've seen. So it may be that she just accepted that that was part of it. It's just like, well, if
yeah.
I don't hear from them, then they're just done.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference. I have a friend who does that, and I do what your therapist now does. I, at the end of
Mm,
session, set our next appointment. And, I think when I actually track my numbers, clients come on average for about 8 sessions. 7 or 8 sessions. Um, and his come for like 3.
Hmm.
And I think that's the difference. I think
Yeah.
the expectation, which he would say is not helpful because he wants to see the idea that you're okay
Yeah.
without having to come in. So that's a great thing
Interesting.
to seed.
Yeah.
Um, I lean more on the side where I assume people are more hesitant, so they don't always ask when they need help.
Got it. Yeah.
And so that's why I do
Yeah.
things the way I do things, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Makes sense.
Mm. Um, and let me ask you this, right? So we talked about the first, in my mind, the first 2 types of clients. And I think the third type of client is the client who comes in and they're asking for something that you don't offer,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Which is a tricky thing, but it happens every once in a while. As in, I will often, not often, I'll occasionally have parents come in and they want me to do therapy with their kid. And I tell them, um, I don't do therapy with kids alone. I do family therapy. And that looks like is we work with the kid until the kid is ready to work with you.
Mm.
And then we do family sessions from that point forward. So I can't work if you are not going to be available. I'm just
Mm.
not going to set that up on the front end.
Yeah.
Or I'll have people come in and they say, "Hey, I need CBT skills for X, Y, and Z," and
Interesting.
I go kind of like what I said to you earlier. Like if that's what you needed, I would assume you would already do it.
Got it.
As though
Hmm.
you can't pick up, a book on CBT and work through the workbook.
Yeah.
Um, and I think
They just need a
that
coach.
they just need a
But
coach.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
in some sense, and I think that's like a weird middle ground because it's not that they're necessarily not invested.
Hmm.
It's that they have a very specific theory of how people change, and
Yeah.
if you can't match that theory of change, um, then it's not going to work out.
Yeah. Did
And
you set up, sorry, did you set up those as a result of experiences or just after all of your school and learning and experience?
um, it's a combination, right? And so there's a lot of stuff on motivation in therapy, which I'm taking much more seriously now.
Okay.
There's also stuff on common factors, and people tend to think of common factors as these are the common factors that make therapy successful.
Hmm.
And to me, the obvious implication of that is there must also be common factors that make therapy unsuccessful.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, and so that's why I'm thinking about motivation and what clients think of as that theory of change. And then, the other part of this is my own clinical experience. You know, so
Makes sense.
it's a mix.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are clients that show up motivated and ready to work.
Yeah, I think for me those are the hardest honestly to identify because
Hmm.
um I don't think that they stay for very long, you know. I don't have people stay for that's part of why I wanted to talk to you because
Yeah.
I think my experience has been therapists overreport the number of you that they have in their session.
Oh, interesting. Yep. Okay.
When I actually have my friends who track their numbers, it doesn't happen that often. When I have people who look through and pull their statistics,
Hmm.
it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
But they will say that, oh yeah, so and so is, have so many people who come, and that doesn't tend to happen.
Got it.
Um,
Huh.
and
My
yeah,
huh is I'm interested that they overreport that. Is it because they've built a relationship and they know this client and that they've been there for so long that it feels like they're there all the time? I don't know.
it's a,
I,
it's a, it's a, I think it's a memory trap,
yeah.
right? people tend to misremember. And so that's why it's important to do research and to track your numbers and look at things. People
Yeah.
tend to misremember on both sides.
Yeah.
But part of what we know from the research is that therapists tend to over-report how well they're doing with clients. They tend to, excuse me, they tend to miss when they're missing with clients.
Hmm.
So they really don't do a good job of telling the difference. And part of that is just humans have selective memories.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking if I had a practice, would I even think to track my numbers? I think at some point I would, but I mean, the first year or two, it'd just be like, just give me the clients.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
So, well, look, anything else? Any other thoughts? As someone who's done a lot of her own work and
No, I'm intrigued by your question or your observance that therapists don't know what they're missing with the client or what they've missed with the client. And I don't know how to qualify that, but I'm interested in it. And I have a lot of friends who've been through therapy. Like I could poll all my friends and be like,
please
what did you
do.
feel like was missing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be interesting.
Everyone's at home anyway with the coronavirus, so send out a few texts and forward them
Everybody's
to me.
trying to find their therapist right now. Yeah, my therapist actually suspended their sessions for now because she has to be home with her kids, and her kids are young enough that she can't do virtual sessions. So if her husband gets sent home full time, then she'll pick him back up. But yeah, my therapist is just unavailable at the moment.
What am I gonna do? Yeah.
But yeah, no, she was funny after my 6 months traveling in Southeast Asia. And then like 3 months later, just about, she was gonna go on maternity leave. She was like, if you need me, I'm available. What am I saying? You've been in Southeast Asia. You're fine. You're not gonna freak out. But she was having some clients who were like panicking because she wasn't going to be available. I was like, yeah, I sent her, I think there are some significant life events that happened during her maternity leave, but I just sent her like incomparably long emails and then I felt better. So
Oh yeah. Someone in the universe knows. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Well, look, Jen, do you have any closing thoughts for us before we get off?
Thank you for what you do. Even if you never hear from clients who just disappear, like the fact that you listen is a huge deal. Yeah. The work that I did in Uganda, I forgot this, I think. I lived in Uganda for a year and worked with child soldiers. After a semester of grad school in therapy. So I showed up with full disclosure, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm brand new to this, but I care and I would love to listen. And that's what they needed. They just needed somebody in the world to know their stories. And that's a huge gift that you offer. So thank you for that.
Well, on that note, thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.